Welcome to my look at Kill Team Gallowfall and the entire Kill Team system. Welcome to the Esoteric Order of Gamers. My name is Peter Gifford. Today I'm going to be looking at Kill Team Gallowfall. It's the last set in the Kill Team Into the Dark series, which is set aboard the Gallowfall, Gallow Dark, Gallow this, Gallow that. The Gallow Dark, a big space hulk, a huge floating conglomeration of spaceships and asteroids and alien bits and pieces that's been floating in the warp and has come out of the warp. And now we have all the factions from Warhammer 40,000 going into this horrific space hulk and fighting for the treasures therein. Well, I've got a few of these Kill Team sets now, and we've seen 4 sets in the Gallow Dark, starting with Into the Dark, and this is the last one. And with this one, we have the Leagues of Votann figures and also some Beastmen figures. And in this set, they're called the Felgor Ravagers for the Beastmen, and the Leagues of Votann are called the Hearthkin Salvagers. Such tongue twisters, but I'm here to tell you this game is great. We played this last night and had a fantastic game. Now, of course, I've played Kill Team before and I've enjoyed it in the past, but you know, I just didn't give it the time I think it deserved. And last night I really sat down with a friend and we just concentrated on the first scenario of this new set, Gallowfall, and we had a really, really good time. I actually have got fresh eyes on Kill Team and how good this system is, because the actual system itself is very straightforward and simple and easy to play. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, but also I think it really, really suits this fantastic interior terrain, and there's some special rules for close quarters combat in this particular terrain inside the Space Hulk. And the whole feel of it is great. It starts off with a real great stealth kind of feel and then gets into the combat. Of course, like any other Games Workshop game, it is quite complicated in that every single figure has its own special abilities and stats. But I think as you get to know these factions, and in fact, after just one game, we were starting to get to know them. As you get to know them, I think it's going to be a lot easier to play, and you'll realize all the different little tactics and strategies you can use depending on your different characters and who, of course, your opponent is. There's really heaps to enjoy here, and I think I'm going to go so far as to say this is the best Games Workshop game that I've played for quite some time. Wow, a big call, but I think as I tell you more about it, you might start to agree with me. So let's get started. First, I'm going to talk about the Gallowfall set and what you get in the box, and then I'm going to talk more generally about the Kill Team system and the close quarters rules, and just the fun you can have fighting within the corridors of the Space Hulk. Oh, and by the way, Games Workshop sent me this copy of Gallowfall for free to show to you. So what do you get in Gallowfall? Well, Gallowfall is not a core set, of course, so it doesn't come with the rules and the counters and the dice and stuff like that, but it does come with this 120-page book, which will tell you all about the new factions and give you lots and lots of scenarios to play. And you also get a full set of the Gallow Dark terrain. Now, I've got 3 of these Kill Team sets now, so I've got 3 sets of Gallow Dark terrain. And it's a bit of a shame that they just repeat this with each set. Now, I understand there are lots of issues with economies of scale and the building of molds for plastic and all that kind of stuff. But you do get some lovely new terrain in here, terrain pieces which are very much focused on sort of medical kind of equipment. And it's absolutely lovely. And you also get a set of drop pods as well, which are great because, well, we'll get into why you need drop pods a bit later. But you do get more of the walls. Now, really 2 sets is the maximum you'll need of the Gallow Dark walls. And that is because you can play games on 1 board like this, which will take 1 set. And there are also scenarios for 2 boards, and you'll need 2 sets to play those larger scenarios. Now, of course, there are the boarding action rules for Warhammer 40,000, and you may need huge setups of terrain if you want to do really big boarding actions and that kind of thing. But really 2 sets is probably the maximum you're going to need, so there is some repetition there, unfortunately. However, the new terrain is lovely. As I said, you've got these drop pods, and The drop pods are there because a lot of these scenarios are built about the fact that in this particular set, the Gallowdark Space Hulk is disintegrating. It's been hit by a prison barge and the whole thing is falling apart. And in these scenarios, you're running around, not only trying to salvage medical equipment and get biosamples and all this kind of stuff, but also just trying to make it to the drop pods to get off the ship before it all absolutely collapses and explodes and falls apart. So there's some lovely tension in some of these scenarios as you're running for these drop pods. And there's never enough drop pods for everybody, let's face it. Someone's got to miss out. Really, really nice idea for some of these scenarios. It's great. Of course, you get one of the boards as well. And so, you know, there's a lot in the set. And when it comes to the miniatures, of course, there are 2 factions and 10 miniatures for each side. So you've got the Hearthkin salvages, which of course the Leagues of Votan figures. Now, I've already got a small Warhammer 40,000 army for Leagues of Votan because I just love the Space Dwarves. There's just something about chunky little guys in power armor that I really like. I've been meaning to do a battle report with those for a long time, but 10th edition, of course, is about to be released. So I'm planning to use those in a 10th edition game to show off the new rules. And this 10 miniature faction here is more of the same. Absolutely great little chunky guys in power armor. Really, really nice. Including one with a jetpack too, which I really like. Then, of course, you've got the Felgor Ravagers, who are the Beastmen. Who doesn't love Beastmen? They're fantastic. You've got a shaman here. You've got a leader with a chainsword, of course. They've got lots of, you know, bludgeons and swords and vicious, close hand-to-hand combat weaponry. Now, of course, these 2 factions are very different in playstyle. The Hearthkin are very much range combat specialists. You want to stay away from the Beastmen as much as possible and get those shots in. You've got a gunner here who's got a, you know, can have a big laser, really nasty weapon, but they've all got good guns. However, when they get into close combat, most of them have only got fists. And fists are just not going to cut the mustard when it comes to fighting a Beastman, because these Beastmen are absolutely vicious in close combat. 2 of the Hearthkin have plasma axes, which are much, much better. They've got 5 damage, both normal and critical hits are 5 damage, so they're fantastic. So you want to get those guys into close combat, but everybody else, you want to stay back from the Beastmen, because fists against bludgeons and nasty swords is just not going to work. The problem is, however, is these are close combat environments, and you get into combat pretty quickly, and especially because the Beastmen are a third faster again than the Hearthkin, which is devastating. The Hearthkin have a movement of 2 circles, which is 4 inches, whereas the Beastmen have a movement of 3 of them, so that's 6 inches. And they get into close combat really fast. And because you don't have large distances on the board here, it's really hard to stay back and get them with a few shots before they come up and start peeling the dwarves out of their power armor. Now, one strategy which is worth keeping in mind is putting your Hearthkin on guard. And I've done this with some success, though I still haven't managed to beat the Beastmen as the Hearthkin in a few games. If you put them on guard, when they're running towards you, you can get that shot in. It's what you'd call Overwatch in other games. We'll get into that a bit later when I talk about the rules. So be warned, it is quite challenging to play as the Hearthkin in these scenarios. Now, as I said, you've got all the rules for these 2 factions in this rule book, which is great. Now, of course, you get the unit cards in the book like that. As you'll see in my battle report coming up in a moment, I make my own unit cards so I can refer to them on the board, and I can put all the special abilities on the card and weapon abilities and things like that. I'd love to share those things, but of course I can't, because they come in the rule book and I'm not allowed to share that information. But I highly recommend, if you have any skill with any program, whipping up your own cards so they're easy to refer to, because you don't want to go flipping through books in the middle of the game. I don't know how anyone does that really, because there's so much information. There are heaps and heaps of missions in here. There are 6 missions which are played on 1 board and 3 played on 2 boards, and they're all specific to the whole Gallowfall situation, using the medical equipment and the drop pods and things like that. And then there is another 9 matched scenarios which use just the straight up Gallowdark terrain and extra pieces. And so those scenarios are equal objectives and victory point scoring opportunities, so they're balanced. But the thematic missions are really, really good. And as I said, involve a lot of running around and panicking while the Space Hulk collapses around you. Really, this is my favourite out of Into the Dark, Soul Shackle and Gallowfall. I missed out on the other one, unfortunately. But I really love this one, even though there is a bit of an imbalance, or it feels like there's an imbalance between the Leagues of Votan and the Beastmen. The Beastmen just feel really, really tough, but it's not enough for me to not want to keep going back and trying to find out the best way to use the Hearthkin to beat the Beastmen. And there must be a way to do it. So that's my quick overview of the set. Let's talk more about Kill Team in general and how it plays. So indulge me now while I have a little bit of a ramble about Kill Team and how much I enjoy this system. Now, the early days of Games Workshop, I was kind of there in the early days when it all started. And one of the games that came out that I loved in the early days and still love now is Necromunda. Now, the good thing about Necromunda, of course, is that you have small factions fighting in very thematic battles. And basically, you know, Necromunda is still around, but Kill Team is the same kind of thing. Small groups attacking each other, interesting thematic situations, great terrain, all that kind of thing. And I personally prefer this kind of skirmish battle to the big games of Warhammer 40,000 and on the fantasy side, Age of Sigmar, just because the games are shorter, there's more character in each of the individual pieces. It's purely a personal preference. But the thing I like the most about this kind of game is that it's relatively straightforward. Now I say relatively because this is a Games Workshop game and there's lots of special abilities to remember. Every piece has got their own individual special abilities. But the good thing about the Kill Team system, even more so than Necromunda, which can get mired in detail, especially if you add the Ashes of Wastes and vehicles and all that kind of thing, is that the actual rules to Kill Team are very, very straightforward. And in fact, they've made some actual sacrifices in order to speed the game up and make it more exciting and cinematic. And they're things like the fact that when you get into close combat, you don't have armor saving throws. They just assume that the chance to hit takes all that into account. So basically you're just rolling to hit and defend. So you don't have that whole to hit, to wound, to save thing, which I always go on about and I find sort of too dragged out and takes up too much time. So at the moment, I'm going to say that Kill Team is my favourite Games Workshop skirmish system. We've had a few games and we've absolutely loved it. And there are certain things that it does that just make it quite special. One of which is the fact that your pieces go on conceal or engage orders during the game. Every time you activate one of your miniatures, you put a conceal or engage order down next to it, a little counter. Now, if your miniature has a conceal order and they're behind cover, they can't be shot at. So they can come sneaking forward across the board, jumping from terrain piece to terrain piece, from cover to cover, and not actually get shot at all. However, of course, when you want to engage somebody, if you want to shoot someone or charge into close combat, you're going to need an engage token. And then, of course, when you're in cover, you can be shot up at. There's a slight advantage to being in cover, but generally you're a bit of a target again. Now, this very simple mechanic brings a whole new feel to the game. You have this great starting period where everybody is trying to sort of sneak up into the optimal positions so they can get their shots out or they can charge into close combat at the right moment. And it changes the whole feel of the game. You're not just charging right into combat straight away. You're looking for those tactical, strategic positions to get in the right place, to get the right attack in. And coupled with the objective conditions of each game, you usually have objective markers or you have objective objects that you have to control to get victory points, that kind of thing. Coupled with this, you get a very, very tactical game and quite a thinky game. It has really amazing cinematic moments, but you really have to think. Every time you activate a figure, you've got to think, well, you know, do I go for that objective and try and control it so I can get a victory point? Or I might have a tactical ploy or a strategic ploy in my hand of cards, and that might give me a victory point if I go for that. Or I might just want to neutralize that enemy over there and charge into close combat with them, or get a shot off, or go into a kind of Overwatch thing. There's so many choices, and it's really, really interesting and fun. Now, I mentioned Overwatch then, and you know, Overwatch is a really good mechanic. It sort of first came up probably in the old days of Space Hulk, and this is this idea that you can put a miniature into Overwatch and it can get a shot off at an opponent on their activation turn. So This is a great idea. For some reason, they've changed the terminology here, and this is the one thing that annoys me a little bit about Kill Team, is for some reason, someone decided that some of the terminology that we're all used to should change. So for example, a round is now called a turning point, which doesn't help anybody. I mean, you know, they're trying to be more descriptive, I guess, but let's just call it a round. We all know what a round is. A round is made up of multiple turns, and, you know, that's it. But they've called it a turning point. Okay, that's a little bit annoying. The other thing they've done is, instead of calling Overwatch Overwatch, they've called Overwatch something different. And that is what happens when one player has more miniatures on the battlefield than the other player. The player with less miniatures can do an Overwatch action, which doesn't cost any action points, and get a shot off, a free shot off. And it sort of balances the fact that they have less miniatures. They can get this free shot off if they're not within engagement range of another miniature and stuff like that. So nice idea, but don't call it Overwatch, because we all know what Overwatch is. Overwatch is getting a shot off in the other person's turn. It's just very, very confusing. So instead, when they introduced Overwatch in the close combat rules, which are the ones that are set within these Space Hulk corridors, they called it Guard. So confusing. So you've got Guard as now Overwatch. So don't change the terminology, Games Workshop, please. I mean, we're all used to it well, personally, I'm used to it after about 30 years, so I really don't want you to change these things. I don't mind change, I love change, but don't change it if it's unnecessary, I think. The other thing they've done and changed here, which I do think is really good, is the use of these little templates. So what they've done here is, instead of measuring things in inches, they've said, you know, for example, a Hearthkin moves 2 circles, and they use these little symbols, and these little symbols are on these templates. Now these are great because you can just put them on their board, and they're particularly good for putting into these very crowded board environments where you have lots of objectives and terrain and stuff like that. So they're really good for sort of poking in there and being able to measure distances. You've got a longer one here, which is a hexagon, and you can just easily place that over the top to measure distances. It's much better than a tape measure. Absolutely love it. And people have been using templates like this for ages in tabletop miniatures games. I like how it's part of it. Now, when Kill Team first came out, I did grumble about the fact that the symbols didn't exactly match the number of inches. For example, a triangle is 1 inch, whereas you'd intuitively think that a triangle is 3 inches because it's got 3 sides, that kind of thing. But I find, you know, you kind of get used to it. The only problem is that during the game, when you read out things, you're always jumping between saying, well, I can move 2 inches or I can move circle or whatever. So it's a little bit hard to communicate the distances. You either use the symbols or you translate them into the number of inches. That's a slight disadvantage, but on the whole, I really like using these templates during the game, and I like the way it's consistently used through the game. Really nice little thing. So that's an innovation, which is great. I'm happy with that kind of innovation, but, you know, changing terminology and stuff can be confusing. The other great thing I love about this new version of Kill Team is that they've made changes to the combat system which work really well. So when you shoot at something, range combat, you roll a certain number of dice to hit, number of attacks. Your weapon tells you what number you need or greater to hit. And you do either critical hits, which are 6s, or normal hits, which are anything else above the number you need to hit. Your opponent then rolls defense dice. So they have a number of dice that they roll and a defense number that they need to hit. And they can also get critical defenses and normal defenses. And then basically the defender gets to cancel out normal hits with their normal saves and critical hits with their critical saves. Or they can use 2 normal saves to cancel out a critical hit. Very fast, very easy to use, and you feel like there's some kind of interaction going on with the players and some decision making. That's great. When you get to the combat system, it's even more interesting because you do the same kind of thing, except you then take turns to apply the dice results, and you can either strike or parry. Now, when you strike, you just do the damage. When you parry, you get to cancel out one of your opponent's dice. Now, remember that all your weapons have a normal damage value and a critical damage value. So if you get a critical hit through, it's going to do the higher amount of damage usually. So the 2 miniatures fighting, the miniature that is charged into combat doesn't get like a +1 to hit for charging or anything like that, but they get that first strike. So when they roll their dice, they can say, okay, depending on what the other player got in their dice, they can decide whether to strike or parry. Usually you're going to go for that devastating strike first to get the damage in, but you can choose, if you rolled really badly, to parry some devastating strike of your opponent. again, it brings a kind of mini game into the close combat, which I just love. It really makes it much more interesting than just roll to hit, roll to wound, roll to save. Lovely stuff. Now, even though the rules themselves are very simple and straightforward, of course, there is huge amounts of detail here, and that usually comes with all the individual special rules that each miniature has. However, I found after a game, 2 games at the absolute most, you're really going to get to know these little miniatures. And it's a lot of advantages here to playing over and over with the same factions and getting to know them. And also, you can just whip up a little reference sheet saying, okay, this miniature basically does this. So for example, I could say, okay, this little guy here, he's a really good close combat guy, and when he hits someone, they will get pushed back. And that's all the note I need to make. Then I don't have to go through all the details of the actual rule. As long as I know he does that, when I actually choose this miniature to do that thing, I can then check my rules and get the absolute way of doing it. But you'll find very, very quickly you get to know these miniatures, and then it comes down to a game of, well, where do I use my miniatures to do the optimum thing? And also, if you get to know your opponent's faction, of course, you can say, okay, I've got to make sure I stay away from that guy with this guy, and that guy's got really good close combat ability, so I'll use my guy with the plasma axe and make sure I fight him, not just the guy with the fists. You know, there's so much stuff to decide here. And of course, it changes depending on the objective, because you may be defending, attacking, trying to get victory points in all kinds of ways. So there is that level of complexity there. There's also another level of complexity because you have tactical ploys, strategic ploys, and tac ops cards. And this is another whole level of things to remember. As I said, I use my sheets to remember all this kind of stuff, but you do quickly kind of pick it up. And a lot of these things don't necessarily apply in all situations, so you can put them out of your head pretty much as you're playing. Those tac ops cards are things that you can play for extra objectives that give you extra victory points. Each one has a maximum of 2 victory points. And they're very crucial to most games, because if you have a relatively even distribution of objectives on the board and you all manage to grab them, those tac ops cards are going to make all the difference. Strategic ploys are things that cost command points, and you play those only in the strategic phase of the game. Tactical ploys also cost command points, but you can play them at any time specific to the particular ability. So lots and lots of choices, and it's really good that the basic rules are pretty straightforward, because all the complexity is in the individual special abilities of the miniatures and those ploys and tac ops cards. So I've said quite a lot about Kill Team. Now I'm going to show you how it plays. This is a game that Dylan and I had the other night. It's not a full battle report. I don't cover everything. Sometimes I just summarize what went on, but it gives you an idea of how the game plays and how much fun it is. I can't recommend this highly enough, actually. I think it's the best thing Games Workshop's done for ages. Kill Team! The Hearthkin salvages are the attackers, and I've set up here, ready to go in through the doors and scuttle as many pieces of medical equipment and as many drop pods as possible. Dylan has set up his nasty beastmen, 3 of them over there, including his leader, another 2 there, another 3 there, and over on the side here, I think he's going to be making a bit of a flank action up here, because there is a door into one of the rooms just here. Otherwise, all the doors are on either side. Sorry?
Got some plans.
He's got some plans.
Yeah.
So we're ready to start with the first turn.
So we'll move up here, hide behind the door, and open it.
The terrifying hordes of Felgor Ravagers. They're fast.
They are fast.
They move 3 circles. So 3, so 6
circles.
inches.
6 inches.
You might only move 4, so there's a huge difference.
I'm not armoured, but I'm fast. I could get over there.
So this is the state of play at the end of turning point number 1. And you can see that the beastmen have come in through and they're protecting these drop pods and objectives. And a few of these, including their leader and this guy here, have come forward a bit. They're just on the middle of the board and they're protecting these drop pods here. I've come in and I'm going for these 2 drop pods so I can start destroying them or scuttling them. I've already got 1 point of scuttling on there. Now if I scuttle an objective twice, that's scuttled for the rest of the game and I get 1 victory point. If I scuttle it once, Dylan can repair it. So there's a push me pull you thing going on there. But of course I'm the attacker and the onus is on me to destroy things, because at the end of the game everything that hasn't been scuttled gives Dylan 1 victory point. Over here I've already done 1 point of scuttling, or I've already scuttled this piece of medical equipment, and I've got other guys in place as well. But Dylan has got 2 beastmen coming in through the side door, which is a little bit scary. In fact, he terrified me so much with the number of beastmen running in here that I brought one of my warriors over, my cognitar. He was actually deployed over here, but I brought him over here to back up here. And in fact, this warrior here I had running up the side, and I changed my mind when he came charging down there and decided to scuttle back around the corner. So he's going to get away from there. But I'm a little bit worried about those coming in through the side door. What's going to happen next? Who knows? But it's going to be violent. There's some quite interesting things going on over here. I've got my gunner guy here who has a HY las rotary cannon, which is my most powerful gun. And I've got the first action in this turn, and what I've done is put him on guard there. So if this leader guy charges me, I'll be able to get a shot off before he gets me. Also, I've used my cognitar to do his tactician ability, and he's placed an attack token there. So while I'm within range of that attack token, I'll be able to re-roll one of my attack dice. So I'm setting up a little bit of a field of fire with a few buffs and things to hopefully get Dylan's charging beastmen before they reach me, or at least damage them. And the reason I've gone to so much trouble is because I can't actually fire at the leader while he's concealed, because he's in cover behind that drop pod. So I can't actually just activate my gunner and take a shot. So I've got to set him up to take a shot when and if Dylan's leader comes out of concealment.
First action.
First beastman charge of the game. Help me. One thing I really enjoy about this system is the interesting little combat system, and that you roll dice and you can either get normal hits or critical hits. And then you just do a sort of alternating choice to either strike, doing damage, either critical or normal damage, or parrying, taking dice away from your opponent. So there's a nice little bit of choice in the combat, which is good. So in that case, Dylan rolled 1 normal hit and 1 critical hit, and so did I.
As the attacker, I got to go first, so I assigned my critical first, which was a good 5 points of damage.
Yep, 5 points of damage to me, which is not fun at all. But then with my next dice, I could then parry his other normal hit with my normal parry, and I was left with a critical hit, so I got to do a critical hit with against him. Unfortunately, however, I'm just using fists, so it only did 3 points of damage as opposed to his 5 points of damage, but still, not bad. Okay, I brought my Thane, who's this guy, my leader, round and charged the guy who attacked this guy. And because he's got a plasma axe, in fact, when he's activated, he puts a grudge token on the opponent. So that means I can convert a normal hit to a critical hit. I rolled 4 dice and I only needed 2+, and I got 4 normal hits. I converted 1 to a critical hit. Dylan rolled and got 1 critical, and then decided to spend
my valuable command points.
2 command points.
Of them to re-roll 2 dice and got a 1 and a 2.
So you do have 1 critical left, which, because I start because I attacked, I get to parry his, and I have this left, which is going to do 15 points of damage. Say goodbye.
Such a good system that you can parry first and then apply all the hits. So I couldn't even get my first blow up.
It is. It's a very cool little combat system, isn't it? Yeah. So you will die for the temerity of charging forward and attacking my guy.
Yeah.
You are the weakest link. The annoying thing, of course, is that the beastmen have the frenzy ability. So unfortunately, that means he's going to survive 1 more turn, or at least until the end of this turn. How does it work again?
No, he's going to get another turn. So he's already had his activation,
yeah.
But Frenzy will go at the end of his next activation. So they always get 1 more charge in, basically. All you can do is fight, basically, during Frenzy turn, and then you're done.
They're so angry, they just don't die straight away.
Yeah, it's great.
Curses. Round 2, I'm not going to call them turning points again. I think that's a stupid name, and I'm going to continue calling them rounds, as they should be called. Round 2 was fantastic. It was such a good round. So much happened. This game is amazingly cinematic. And not just in general terms, but there are amazing specific little cinematic moments that happen all over the board. Over here, we had this fantastic attack here. So much happened, but there was a huge melee, and one of your guys managed to damage seriously one of my guys. My guy with the power fist came charging over and bashed into him and killed him. Even though when you do damage to a beastman, it goes into a frenzy. If you can manage to hit him again, you can kill him during that turn. So I did that, and then Dylan's leader came charging across the board because he had a attack ops card which would give him victory points for killing my leader. So he charged over here, but of course I had this guy on guard, so he attacked with his huge laser and managed to take him out.
Did like 15 damage or something.
A huge amount of damage. It did exactly what I wanted it to. He was just sitting there waiting for that opportunity. However, you still had an activation left before you died, and you took out my leader and got the victory points. So much was happening there. It was just amazing. Then we came over here. Really interesting things happening too. We had more battles here. A big charge over here from one of Dylan's guys. Tried to take out my guy and failed miserably. My jump pack dude here.
There was someone here and here. Yeah.
Yep. Jump pack got him. However, this guy came charging forward and killed him, so that was the end of that. My lugger was here, and he got killed by this guy charging in. Absolutely huge. And then down here, he's got this one guy, and the reason this guy's down here is because he gets victory points for being close to my deployment zone. So I managed to activate a guy here and bring him back here around the corner so I could shoot him. But Dylan is just suddenly rolling really, really well, and I'm rolling really badly. The dice gods have flipped completely. And I didn't manage to take him out. And even though I had an Overwatch action with him, because Dylan now has more models than I am, even during an Overwatch action, I didn't manage to kill him. So frustrating, but what an exciting turn. And it's only turn 2, there's 4 turns. It seems short, 4 turns, but you can pack so much into 4 turns in this game. Whew. There has been some devastating action over this side of the table. Look at Dylan. That's great. This guy here shot and killed this guy hiding behind here. This one over here killed the other guy. It's just been absolutely devastating. And Dylan's been trying to fire back, but failing miserably. So really, I've only just got the shaman on this side of the table. If I can kill him, all the objectives are mine.
Yeah. Which
would be amazing. Of course, there's a few guys here left to kill, but yeah, if I could get all those, that'd just be great. I also managed to finally kill the guy who was lurking here, which was fantastic. He then, before he died, charged my guy and killed him. So there are 4 casualties over there. Things are looking slightly grim, but...
I've lost 6 of my 10.
You've lost 6? And
I've lost 4 left.
I've lost 4.
You've got one there, haven't you?
Hey?
5.
Yeah. So what
You've only got 5 left.
I've lost 4.
Yeah, 5.
Oh, 5. I lost a warrior down here, so 5 left. Oh, absolutely amazing game. Just amazing. That's going to be really interesting to see what happens. There's only 1 turn after this one, but we haven't finished this turn. There's still some things to happen.
What will happen in this room?
Yes, there's another theatre of war over here, and who knows? I love the way this game is splitting things up into 2 battle zones as well.
Yeah, I like that.
Very cool.
That's good.
There are so many decisions to be made in this game. This guy, I've moved over here to scuttle this again so it can't be repaired. But for a moment I thought, oh, well, I'll go into here and just scuttle this once because Dylan won't have time to repair everything. But of course, I have to actually have control of the objective I'm trying to scuttle. So we would have an even number of APL around that objective, so I wouldn't have a chance to scuttle it. So it's really quite tricky for the attackers. And you're sort of in quite a defensive position behind those drop pods now.
I can certainly stay there if I want to. I can be pretty defensive here.
Which is strange for the beastmen because they're used to charging out there.
Well, they're sort of defending and then just finding the right moment to lunge out.
Lunge.
Hopefully not get shot to pieces.
Yes, and go into a frenzy. But it is kind of challenging. And really, I mean, this game probably is more suited to the dwarves being the defenders and the beastmen being the attackers. But still, It's very interesting tactical challenges, and that's one thing I'm really enjoying about this game. There are so many interesting decisions to be made at every point. Here we were just talking about not charging, and Dylan's charged. And look at that guy, he's got 3 arms and 3 weapons. It's going to be messy. Well, my go with the power fist got taken out. I did 4 damage to him, but unfortunately I am dead. Which is just devastating. And not only that, it's kind of frustrating because that also means that you've got one of your characters within range of my deployment zone, so I don't get that victory point I was trying to get.
Yeah, that's true. I can also repair this piece of medical equipment that you've,
Yes, that's the
tried to destroy.
The drop pod.
The drop pod.
Not medical equipment, but
that's right. No, these are,
Oh dear, it's not going well for the doughty salvages.
What's it turning around?
Incredibly, I've taken out that offending 3-armed beastman with an overwatch shot from this warrior here. So, however, you won't go down to the next turn, will you? Because you're frenzied.
I'll get one more go.
And you're already activated, so you'll get one more go.
Because I'm frenzied, I now can't repair this.
Well, that's true, but also you're still stopping me from getting that victory point.
Yes, I'm controlling.
Unfortunately, I'm having no luck whatsoever getting any of these TAC Ops cards achieved, whereas Dylan has got 4 points from his, and I really think that's going to be a big game changer. Well, folks, it's the last round, and things are looking pretty grim for the Hearthkin salvages. The beastmen have managed to repair a couple of things. They've repaired this objective over here, this table, and really I just don't think I've got enough. Not only do I not have enough places that I've scuttled, but also Dylan's got 4 victory points in TAC Ops cards over there, and I haven't got any, so it's just not looking good.
These guys are hard to kill, and this guy's going to do another charge.
Yep.
Because I won initiative.
The beastmen are really strong. They have this frenzy ability that allows them to act a little bit further from after they die, which is hard. They also have high speed, and they're very, very powerful in melee combat. Now, the salvages are great in shooting, but unfortunately it's really hard to keep away from the beastmen long enough to get some good shots in. So
I think it might be cleavers against fists again in this one.
I know. Fighting with fists just doesn't do the business, really. And here we go again.
Here it is again.
It's a 3-armed guy with cleavers against a poor little dwarven dude in armour with fists. And his armour doesn't even do any good. It only works in... armour only helps in shooting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's not looking good. As expected, he is dead. However, the beastman who attacked him, who had frenzy, got to the end of his activation, so he's dead as well. So, wow, everybody's dying. I've got, 3 guys left, and you've got 3 guys left. We're even.
Yeah.
Yeah? But you've got the victory points. It's going to come down to the victory points.
That's true.
Well, I've decided to concede before the end of round 4 because there is no way I can win. Unfortunately, these other objectives up here are out of range. There's no way I can run up there and scuttle any of those things, even though he's only got 1 guy here. Over here, sure, there's a battle going on here, but there's really nothing I can do because, again, I'm way behind in victory points for scuttling and also for the TAC Ops cards. So it's a definite loss for the salvages. Well done there, Dylan.
Well played, dwarves. I feel like that was a pretty tough scenario for you against the Felgor.
I think I would have been better as defenders, but
definitely.
Even so, because they're quite small boards, it's hard to get enough shots in. When I do get to shoot, it can be quite devastating. I can take out a Ravager in 1 shot. The problem is, of course, is that they've got Frenzy, so they get to get another shot in if they haven't activated yet. But the problem is, as I said, the distances are quite short, so you can charge in and get me into close combat. And when you get into close combat, apart from 2 of my guys, I'm attacking back with fists.
Yeah,
which is not much good. And there's one thing we have noticed that's a bit strange, that in shooting, I get the benefit of my armour and that I get a save. But in close combat, there's no benefit for armour whatsoever, which is slightly weird. I mean, everything else is fantastic, but I just find it a bit weird that armoured dwarves wouldn't get a little bit of defense against swords and cleavers and things because they're wearing power armor.
Maybe it's just for simplicity, but I feel like you would have done a lot better on defense, especially when how effective your guard attack was.
Yes.
Being on guard.
Being on guard was great. Having my big gunner on guard really worked and took out your leader in one go, which was fantastic. But so many tactical choices. I'm really impressed with this system because every turn we had to really think about the choices that we made and whether we were going to go for a victory point or go for a charge or go for a shot. It's really interesting, and I'm actually really keen to play more and more scenarios.
Me too. I'm keen to swap it around, try attacking and you defend.
Yeah. So there you have it, Kill Team Gallowfall, and my thoughts on Kill Team in general. I think you'll agree that this is a absolutely visually spectacular game. I mean, really, it is one of the most attractive games I've ever played. Once you've painted everything up, it looks so cool, and it really has a great feel for fighting within these claustrophobic corridors of the Space Hulk. I'm going to be playing it a lot more. In fact, my friend and I intend to go through the whole little campaign in the Gallowfall set and just see what a succession of battles are like and how that feels, especially as we get to know these factions a lot better and become very used to what each model does and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So a big recommendation for me for Kill Team. I highly recommend you check it out. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do next. This is it for the Gallowdark, I think, but they'll be starting a new season and who knows what Games Workshop is going to come up with for Kill Team. I think it's a fantastic little system and it deserves to have a long life. Thanks very much for watching. This is the Esoteric Order of Gamers. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and be sure to check out the website at orderofgamers.com, where you'll find hundreds and hundreds of rules and reference sheets that you can download and print out for your popular games. Of course, I've got one for Kill Team for the basic rules, and I think you'll find that very handy indeed. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.